Yontif. A band I happen to really love called Jukebox the Ghost is about to come out with their new album. I have been on the edge of my seat waiting for its full release, reportedly on October. Phantasmagorical, pre-save it if you want. Okay. But in the meantime, I've been listening to the singles they've released on repeat, especially with my son Dylan, who really loves the first single that they put out called Emotional Fraud. And as the parents in the room know, when your kid really loves a song, you end up listening to it on every single car ride. So by now I've heard it dozens and dozens of times, and I have the lyrics memorized. I can't be 100% certain, but to me, the song reads as one friend revealing to another that they've been on a journey to improve their mental health, presumably in therapy or something like that. Working on my mental health, help by helping out myself. Looking out for number one, gotta care for me to care for anyone. I keep thinking about mom and dad, how they gave me everything they had. They did all I could, I should be glad. But they gave the good, and I took the bad. I've been learning how to cry, how to use this pain I've got inside to be more honest, less insincere, show the world what's behind my tears. All your flaws make you. So if you're sad, then make it worth it. And show the pain you're going through so someone out there feels it too. When I hear this song, so many critical moments and memories come front of mind. I think about the terrible night in my living room with my parents' house in Allentown, where I got caught in a lie and ended up revealing to my parents what I had been going through to that point. I think about my first ever conversations with a therapist and how reluctant I was to actually do the work as a teenager. I think about the turning points in that work that not only indirectly led to moments of life-changing self-discovery, but also helped me better understand what others were going through, including my own family. I think about relapses of bad behaviors, bad patterns of thought I've gone through. The hard road of finding the right person to talk to about all of it. I think about friends and family who stuck by me and supported me, especially the ones who knew everything that I was going through, and most especially my wife, whose professional and educational experience in mental health, combined with her and no-nonsense attitude, have saved me and healed me on more occasions than I can name. Yes, the topic of mental health is personal to me. But I'm not talking about mental health just to tell my own story or share my own journey with you. I'm talking about mental health because I have to. Because we have to. If this is a topic that will trigger a trauma response in you, and you don't feel safe being in the room for this talk, by all means, go find a quiet space in the temple to sit and breathe for a while. Just as our tradition on Yom Kippur, if it would endanger our physical health, I trust you all to take care of yourselves mentally the way you need to. Today in America, of a mental health crisis. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, nearly 1 in 5 adult U.S. citizens experiences a mental illness each year, yet more than half of those individuals do not receive treatment. Diseases of despair and deaths of despair, a statistical category referring to the impact of drug overdose, suicide, and alcohol abuse on people and communities who experience a prolonged sense of despair due to their social or economic circumstances. These have been consistently on the rise for multiple decades, with a significant spike in just the last 2 years. Suicide rates have increased by 30% since 1999, making it a leading cause of death in the country. Beyond the statistics, the crisis is evident in overwhelmed emergency rooms, growing homelessness among individuals with untreated psychiatric conditions, and the strain on schools and workplaces as mental health concerns become more visible. While awareness of mental health has improved, significant barriers, such as cost of care, provider shortages, and stigma, continue to prevent many from accessing the help they need. As Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel once said about the crisis of segregation, as a society, some are guilty, but all are responsible. We need to think about this crisis the same way Moshe wanted us to think about the mitzvot. It's not in the heavens that you should say, who among us can go up to the heavens and get it for us and teach it to us so we could observe it. And it's not across the sea that you should say, who among us can go to the other side of the sea and get it and teach it to us so we could observe it. This crisis is not far away. It's right here, in our cities, in our temple community, in our families. Maybe you yourself are struggling in ways that nobody sees or hears about. From my perspective, alongside Cantor Wallach and Amy Rubin and our Director of Congregational Learning, Lisa Friedman, I can tell you for a fact that there are individuals in our community going through acute struggles with their mental health or the mental health of their family members. Acute, meaning hospitalizations, outpatient therapy or rehab programs, significant diagnoses and the medications that come with them, and major challenges managing the necessities of daily life. So in honor of their struggle and the struggles of so many more that I want to talk about mental health, what Judaism has to say about its importance, and what we can do, both as a temple community and as American voters, to make a difference. First, let's do some history learning. In the mid-20th century, large psychiatric hospitals housed individuals with severe mental illness, often an inhumane. In response to reports of widespread abuse and neglect, the Community Mental Health Act of 1963, signed by John F. Kennedy, aimed to replace institutions with community-based mental health centers. While the law had good intentions, funding for these centers was never fully realized, leaving many former patients without adequate care. Then in the 1990s, the rise of managed care organizations fundamentally changed how mental health treatment was accessed. Insurance companies began implementing cost containment strategies, often restricting coverage for mental health care services. Patients faced limited networks of providers, higher out-of-pocket costs, and stringent pre-authorization requirements, making it increasingly difficult to get long-term therapy or inpatient care. As a result, thousands of individuals with serious mental illnesses such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder were discharged from institutions, losing access to their care and their medications. While awareness of mental health issues has grown, significant barriers continue to prevent millions of Americans from receiving adequate care. Systemic issues such as disparities in insurance coverage, provider shortages, and high costs make it difficult for individuals to access consistent, effective treatment. Despite laws aimed at ensuring equal coverage for mental and physical health care, these disparities persist. The Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act of 2008 was designed to prevent insurance companies from imposing stricter limitations on mental health and substance use treatment compared to physical health services. The Affordable Care Act, too, was meant to expand such services. However, enforcement of these regulations has been inconsistent. And so access to mental health care services can be even harder than for physical health care services in our country in some circumstances, which we all know. We don't have the world's most equitable, efficient healthcare system. Furthermore, a massive shortage of providers, therapists, medications, and the high and still rising cost of care remain major barriers to access. Put it all together, and here we are today in the current crisis. Increased rates of untreated mental illness, leading to crises that require emergency intervention. Greater burdens on emergency rooms and law enforcement, which are often left to manage mental health crises without proper resources to do so. And more individuals turning to self-medication, substance use, or other harmful coping mechanisms. Mental health and mental illness, as parts of the human condition, find their visibility in Jewish tradition, most notably in the book of Psalms. The 150 Psalms run the full gamut of human emotions, everything from the greatest joy and jubilation to the lowermost depths of despair and grief. The psalmist sings their struggles into our tradition, and in their words we see ourselves. We hear of enemies beset around us, our hearts under siege, our ongoing imprisonment inside our own minds. The psalmist begs, pleads for mercy, for release, for redemption, for peace. Turn to me, have mercy on me, for I am alone and afflicted. My deep distress increases. Deliver me from my straits. For the psalmist, the Savior is always God, in some respect or another. Sometimes the psalmist sings their assuredness of God's power to get them out of the depth. And other times, the psalmist laments God's apparent ignorance. But always God is the answer. It's the rabbinic tradition that begins to bring the problem of mental illness or instability out of the realm of bein adam lemakom, between a person and God, and into the realm of bein adam lechavero, between each other. In Masechet Yoma, the tractate of the Talmud entirely dedicated to Yom Kippur, the rabbis debate a particular injunction from the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 12:25 reads, "If there is anxiety in a man's mind, let him quash it." In Hebrew, yashchena, and turn it into joy with a good word. Two rabbis, Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi, are debating the meaning of that word, yashchena, and what exactly it means to quash one's anxieties. Rabbi Ami said he should forcefully push it, yaschena, swapping out a shin for a sin, forcefully push it out of his mind. One who worries should banish his concerns from his thoughts. Rabbi Ami represents what I would openly call a wrong-headed view on mental health. As has for so long been the case, for men especially, but for many people and subcultures within modern society, Rabbi Ami is telling us to simply put our concerns out of mind. Repress your pain. Stop thinking so much about your anxieties. Modern psychology tells us that suppressing our emotions is very clearly a bad idea. When we consistently bottle up our feelings, we create a pressure cooker of emotions within ourselves. And over time, the internal pressure builds, manifesting as anxiety and tension and a general sense of unease. And the irony is that in our attempts to maintain control and avoid vulnerability, we inadvertently create a state of constant emotional turmoil. Rabbi Asi comes to the rescue and corrects Rabbi Ami, and he's got it exactly right. Rabbi Asi said it means he should tell, yesichena, both a shin sin swap and a yud, yesichena, tell others his concerns, which will lower his anxiety. How do we turn our anxiety to joy? It's just like Proverbs says, with a good word. Talk about it. I have said this before, and I will keep saying it. Seeking help for the adversity you are going through is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. Weakness would be to give up, to become apathetic, to repress your emotions and let the world deal with the callous and irritable person you thereby become. Conversely, it takes a strong person to look oneself in the mirror and admit that you're going through something difficult. It takes strength to overcome your pride or your shame. And it is a massive sign of strength that you might be willing to do the work necessary to take care of your mental health for not just your own sake, but for the sake of all those who care about you. Pursuing mental health care is the move of someone willing to fight for their right to live a contented life in the mind and body God gave them. Seeking help is not weakness. It is perseverance, determination, strength personified. More than just talking about our own mental health with a counselor, therapist, clergy person, doctor, however, we need to talk about the issue itself. There is a mountain of statistical evidence to demonstrate that we are in this crisis, but a few numbers stood out to me as I prepared these remarks. Per the National Alliance on Mental Illness, better known by their acronym NAMI, 1 in 5 U.S. adults have mental illness each year, and 1 in 20 experience serious mental illness each year. Mental illness is especially dangerous and prevalent among our kids. 1 in 6 young people, ages 6 to 17, experience a mental health disorder each year. 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14. 75% by age 24. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death among children in our country between the ages of 10 and 14. I don't want to be the language police, but there is a particular phrase that I want you all to work on eliminating from your lexicon. We should not be using the language of committed suicide anymore. Not with all we now know about human psychology and what is happening inside a person who ends their own life. We commit to initiatives of self-betterment. We commit to life partnerships. We commit to institutional values. Commitments are choices made with rational forethought and usually entail ongoing obligation or devotion. I have heard from many friends and family who have experienced a suicide in their lives that the language of committing suicide is extremely painful and paints a damaging portrait of the loved one they lost. Suicidal ideation is a symptom of deep illness, and as is the case for any other serious illness, we should use the language of death by suicide or dying by suicide as the result of succumbing to that illness. We have to talk about this if anything's ever going to change. And when we do, let's use language of care and compassion rather than of accusation or shame. More than just making adjustments to how we talk about mental health, however, we have to make changes in how we take care of each other in this country. To truly address America's mental health crisis, we need to get in touch with our representatives, both now and in the aftermath of this government shutdown, and remind them, without consistent funding, enforcement, and systemic reforms, mental health care will continue to be inaccessible for many Americans, perpetuating an already untenable crisis. Urge them legislation that expands healthcare access and healthcare services, especially mental health care services, and not to cut funding for life-saving services and institutions like Medicaid. You all should know, too, that there is a hotline number that you can dial if you or someone you know is actively going through a crisis. That number is 988. Everybody say it. 988. Which you would dial just like 911 in the case of emergency. 988 will connect you to a trained crisis counselor, not the police, and they will stay on the line with you for as long as is necessary. There are also resources for the deaf and blind, as well as an online chat version of the 988 Lifeline and text message functionality if you prefer texting to a phone call or don't feel safe to make a phone call in that moment. Here at Temple Beth-El, we will continue to do all we can to support the mental health of our congregation. If your child has a learning disability or difference or another mental health diagnosis, please make sure that you've communicated those things clearly to our religious school so that we can both be supportive and inclusive. We will actively work with you and your family to ensure that our community is safe from stigma. If you yourself are struggling with your mental health, the cantor and myself are an important resource for you. We are good counselors, and we can help you get through a difficult time. Please make an appointment. Claim our time. We are here to talk about it with you. Tomorrow afternoon at 1:30 will be our healing service. I urge you to come to that service, even if you don't have a physical illness and even if you don't have a mental health diagnosis. We all need healing right now. The world is so broken, and we carry so much of that brokenness around with us. It's my hope that our healing service tomorrow will be full of song and that those in our community who are in desperate need of healing will be bolstered by their fellow temple members sitting and singing beside them. We're also going to engage in a brand new ritual to our temple life that I hope you'll get to be a part of. Throughout the year, in months that have 5 Fridays, we'll take one Shabbat service that month and make special space within that service for healing prayers, much like our healing service tomorrow. We want Temple Beth-El to be a locus for your ongoing healing work, not just on Yom Kippur, but all year round. You don't have to struggle alone. I'll close this sermon with a beautiful prayer for healing for mental illness from a book called Mishkan Refuah, a book of healing prayers of all kinds published by our movement, that I offer now on behalf of all in our congregation who are struggling through this difficult time. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless us with strength and healing as we struggle with emotional distress and mental suffering. May we walk in the footsteps of Jacob, King Saul, Miriam, Hannah, and Naomi, who lived with dark moods, hopelessness, isolation, and terror, but survived and led our people. Just as our father Jacob spent the night wrestling with an angel and prevailed, may we be granted the endurance to wrestle with pain and prevail, night upon night. Grant us the faith to know that though, like Jacob, we may be wounded, shaped, and renamed by this struggle, still we will live on to continue an ever-unfolding, unpredictable path toward healing. May we not be alone on this path, but accompanied by friends and family in all their forms, caregivers, ancestors, and the divine presence. Surround us with loving kindness, grace, and companionship, and spread over us a Sukkat Shalom, a shelter of peace and wholeness. And let us say, Amen. 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 Amen.